As software developers, it is our responsibility to create applications that bring real value to society and contribute to making the world a better place. Today, I introduce to you SafeReport, an application designed to allow people to report crimes and incidents anonymously. To submit a report, users can click on the Make Anonymous Report button or navigate via the Submit Report link in the navbar. Users can select the urgency of the report, either emergency or non-emergency, based on the situation they want to report. For this demo, let's choose the emergency option. We will start by uploading an image of a fire outbreak. Thanks to the power of Gemini AI, the app automatically identifies the incident type, generates a report title, and provide a detailed description based on the uploaded image. Next, users can enter location manually or use this button for automatic geolocation. Finally, by clicking on the Submit Report button, the report is sent. Once submitted, the system generates a unique report ID which can be copied to track the report progress. By clicking on the Track Report link, we can paste the report ID here and click on this button, Track Report. And we can view all the details of our submission on this page. But that is not all. SafeReport also includes an admin dashboard where emergency authorities can review, manage, and take actions on all the submitted reports. The dashboard is secured with sign-in and sign-up systems to ensure only authorized personnel have access. In these tutorials, I'll walk you through every single step to build this app from scratch. We will be using Prisma for our database solution, Shadcn and Tailwind CSS for styling, NextAuth for authentication, Mapbox for address autofill, and many more exciting technologies and concepts to learn along the way. Let's get started on building SafeReport. Finally, we have a dedicated Discord channel. This space is perfect for debugging together, sharing memes, and exploring job opportunities. Click the link in the bio to join our amazing community. After recording the crime report application, I thought it wise to create a blog post. During my search on the internet, I came across this website, seowriting.ai. Here is the blog I wrote for this project, all created with just one click. Let me show you how it works. Once you sign up to this platform, you'll be welcome to this dashboard. So we are going to use the one-click blog post feature to write our blog. I'll click on it. And over here, we are going to write some keywords to generate a title by using the Generate Title button. So let's add our keywords. We have theft, crime, fire outbreak, we have report, and incident. So I'll click on this button to generate a title. And we have a title for the blog post. So we have these core settings, language to be English by default. You can choose all these languages for your blog. We are going to use the default values for all these core settings. Over here, we have a brand voice. So a brand voice helps you create a unique style and tone for different situations in writing your blog post or articles. So let's create a brand voice. When I click on this button, Create Brand Voice, we will be taken to this page over here. And let's add a new brand voice. I already have a brand voice that I will paste over here. So this is my brand voice. I'll click on Create a Brand Voice. And we have the name and the description over here. So everything looks great to me. I'll click on Save Brand Voice. Now we have the brand voice added. So let's move back to creating the blog post. We can select the brand voice over here. And at the Media Hub section, we can choose the number of images and videos we would like to see in our blog post. So for the images, I would like to see 4 images. And for the videos, I would like to see 3 videos for my blog. And this section is for generating SEO keyword. So I'll click on this button to generate some keywords. And voila, we have some keywords over here. We can change the structure of the blog using the structure section over here. And we want to connect to the web. We are going to use the connect to web feature to write an up-to-date content for our blog. So everything is going to remain default. We scroll all the way down here. And for WordPress website, you can connect your website and post the blog directly to your website. So when I click on add website, we can install the WordPress plugin on our website and publish the content directly. Everything looks great for me. I will click on the run button to generate my blog post. So whilst we wait for this to get done, let's explore the other features for this platform. So back to the dashboard, we have this bulk article generation. Using this feature, we can generate up to 100 articles at a time. The steps to generate article is very similar to what we did for creating our blog. Now, to get the most out of this platform, you have to be a subscriber. And there is a good news for you guys. When we choose to upgrade our plan and use my coupon code, AlbertMent, we get a whopping 25% discount on the price. To check out this platform, visit the first link in the description. So guys, welcome back to my channel once again. So for this project, we are going to use Shadcn as our main component library. So what is Shadcn? Shadcn is a library that helps you quickly build modern looking interfaces in React.js or Next.js. So Shadcn combines Tailwind CSS with Redis UI components to give you a ready-to-use customizable components like buttons, menus, form, and cards. It also helps you create a consistent and professional user interface without starting from scratch. And everything can be easily styled to fit your needs. So let's get Shadcn installed in this project. So back to our browser, we have this link here which directly takes us to the installation page for Shadcn. So all these are the frameworks we can install Shadcn on. So we have Nextjs, we have Vite, we have Remes, and all these other frameworks. So in this project, we are more interested in Nextjs. So I'll click on Nextjs. All right, so over here, we have the installation procedure for Nextjs. We can literally copy this create project command and install the Shadcn project with Nextjs. We are going to copy the second command, which has the D flag. So what this is going to do is going to flag the default. So like we have New York, we have Zinc, and we have yes for the CSS variables, right? And we have the configure component.js. We are going to get into this once we are done installing the Shadcn. So let's copy this command, npm, move back to our terminal, paste it right here, hit on enter. So let's give the app a name. I'll just name my crime report app. This may take some few minutes, so I'll pause this video and come back as soon as everything is installed. All right, so we are back. We have the component installed. Everything has been installed successfully. So let's go ahead and cd into the crime report application and start writing our code. So cd crime report app, and we are inside the crime report folder or directory. All right, so inside the crime report app directory, we have all these folders which we are going to touch as we progress in building this application. So before we write any code, let's write npm run dev, this command here. And we are going to have our application started on localhost port 3000. So back to my browser, enter localhost port 3000. And we have this default landing page from Next.js. So we are going to customize this to suit our own preference. So when I move back to my code, navigate to the app directory, we have this page.tsx file. This is the code that is showing all these information on the localhost port 3000. So we can, change something like save and see your changes instantly. Have modified over here, a test modified, give it a save, move back, and we have modified. So we can get rid of everything here and start writing our own code. So I'll just collapse this div, get rid of everything, and write a paragraph that says homepage. So we are going to come back to this homepage and write everything that we need to make this homepage looks exactly like what we have demoed in the intro. So let's move to the layout page. All right, so inside this layout page, what I mostly do is to get rid of everything here and start writing my code from scratch. So I'll just get rid of everything here and start writing the code. So we are going to import meta type. So a type from metadata, which you're going to get from Nest. And we are going to import the font Inter for our default font for this project. So we get that from Nest font Google, and we are going to import the global.css. So we have global, this file over here, globals.css, and we are going to have a navbar imported. Since we don't have that created now, we are going to skip that. So I'll just replace this by a comment. So import navbar here. And we are going to import providers, which is going to help us with the authentication for the dashboard. We haven't created that yet, so I'll replace that by a comment. So import providers over here. And we are going to set up the font and the metadata for this project. So to set up the font, we are going to create a constant named inter, which is going to have the inter we imported over here, which is a name of a font. Inter is the name of the font. That is a function, accept this object, subset, and the subset is going to be Latin. And we are going to create our metadata next. So we have export constant metadata. We have to extend the type that we imported here, metadata. And this is going to be an object. So what is the uses of a metadata? When we add a metadata to our application, it helps in search engine optimization. So these are some of the information that modern search engines like Google or Bing look for in a website. So these metadata are going to provide enough details to the search engines to be able to rank our website in the right way. So we can add a whole list of metadata of your choice. You can read more about that on the Nextjs documentation website. But for this project, we are going to add a title and a description for metadata. So we have title, which is going to be SafeReport. And we have anonymous crime reporting app. And we have the description, which is going to be securely and anonymously report crimes to law enforcement. So these are going to be the two metadata we are going to set up for this project. So right from setting up the metadata, we are going to export the root layout for the entire application. So we have export, we have default, and we have function, which is going to be the root layout. Root layout which is going to have the children. We're going to spread in the children, and we are going to have the type for the children. So the children are going to have a type of React node. So this is going to be the type. So I omitted L here, children, and we have the children extended as a props for this root layout. So we just add this over here. Oops. This, and then we write the body of the function. So over here, we are going to return a div or an HTML element. So starting with the HTML tag. So we start with the HTML. Oops, not this one. HTML. And we provide the language to be English. We provide the body. The body is going to have this class name here. Class name. We have inter.class name. So we are providing the font as the class name. So meaning we are going to have the font applied to every single page of this website. So we have the body tag element created. Next, we are going to create a div that is going to be the background color of the application. So we have a div and we have class name. So we are using Tailwind CSS for this application. So this is going to be a relative class. Relative. We have the minimum height to be screen. We have the background to be black, and we have selection to be background color of sky 500 divided by 20. And we are going to have a gradient background. So let's provide a comment here that says gradient background. So what this background is going to do is to have this subtle gradient in the background of the home page, right? So let's create a div for that. So we have a div which is going to have this class name, fixed. This is going to be a fixed. It's going to have a fixed property, insert 0, and we provide a negative z index of 10, minimum height of screen. And within this div, you're going to have two other divs, which are going to have the actual gradient for the application. So we are going to have this div here and provide the class name. So let's make this a self-closing div. Provide a class name. Oops. We have absolute, insert 0, height full. We have the background over here. So I'll copy this entire class or background and paste it right here. Awesome. So we are good to go. Let's duplicate this and modify it for the second div. So everything is going to remain the same with the exception of the RGB. So the first value is going to be 14. The second one is going to be 165. The third is going to be 233. And we have 0.04. And the transparency is going to be 70%. Awesome. So we have that. And followed by this is going to be the navbar. Since we don't have the navbar, I'll just replace that with a comment. And then we will get back to this page and import the navbar after we are done creating it. So let's write the main div code, right? The main div element, which is going to have a class name of padding top 16, and we have the children. So later on in these tutorials, we are going to provide or wrap around these children with the providers. But until then, we are going to leave it this way. So it's just that we created the layout. I think it's time to move back to localhost port 3000 to see what we have. And on this page, we have the black background with our test homepage. The reason why we are not seeing this is because the text is black. So when we change this to class name, text white, we are supposed to see the home page over here. Awesome. So now what we are going to do is to create the navbar, have it imported in the layout page, and then we move ahead to the home page and write all the code for the home page. So let's start writing the code for the navbar. So we are going to create a new folder inside the root directory named component. This is a normal convention in most React and Next.js application. You separate your components from your app to have, a clear and an easy to read code for anyone to pick up the code and understand what's actually going on. So you separate your code by concerns, and everything is going to be easy for other developers to understand. So inside the components folder, we are going to create the navbar. So you have navbar.tsx, and inside this component, we are going to create the navbar. So let's start writing the code for navbar. We call useClient because we are going to have a useState variable here, which is a client state. We can use that in the server. So we have to emphasize the fact that we are making this component a client folder by providing this text over here, useClient. We're going to import a couple of things from Nextjs React to write our navbar. So we first import the link from NextLink and import useState from React. Then we are going to import mobile menu from mobile menu. So we are here to create this. I'll comment this out and get back to this after we are done creating the mobile view. Awesome. So we export default this whole component is a function, name it navbar. So this function doesn't accept any props, but what we do have here is a state that is going to check whether the navbar is open or not. So this will be useful when we write the mobile menu component. All right, so let's create the constant and have its mobile menu open, and we have set its mobile menu open to be a useState. We have the default state to be false. So this is going to check whether we have the mobile menu opened or closed. So now let's return this fragment here, React fragment, and have a nav element within this fragment. So this nav element is going to have a class name, obviously, and we want to place this navbar at the top. So we are going to have the first class property, which is going to place it at a first position at the top. So we have first. This alone doesn't place it at the top. We have to add a couple of other class names like top and left to position this at the top. So we have top 0 and we have left 0. This is going to place it at the top. And we have a border bottom. We want to have a border bottom for the navbar. So we indicate the border bottom class property and have the border to be white divided by 5. Border. Okay, all right. And then we have the background to be black divided by 50 or 60. Let's make it 60. And we have a backdrop of blur XL and a Z index of 50. We give this a save. So before we import this at the layout, let's add a couple of classes or components before we move to the layout and import the navbar. So right after the navbar element, we are going to have a div, which is going to have a class name mxauto, and we have mass width to be 7XL. So what this div is going to do is to house all the elements inside the navbar, right? Inside the navbar. So you want to place everything in the center, have a max width of 7XL, a padding X on the horizontal view of 6 pixels, right? So let's create a div which is going to have the class name, a class name of flex, H of 16. We have item center, justify between. All right, so within this div, we are going to have the logo and the brand, right? So we have logo and brand. And within this div, we are going to create additional div, which is going to be the div to contain the logo and the brand name, right? The logo and the brand name. So we have that div created over here. Provide a class name. We have flex item center, and we have a space X of 3. And then we are going to have a link, because when the user click on this logo or the brand, we do want to take them to the home page. So we provide the reference to the link to be /, which means the home page. Right, so let's create a class for this link. We want to flex all the items. We want to place everything at the center. So flex item center, space X of 3. Remember, this is just for the logo and the brand. So we're going to have 2 elements here, the logo and the brand. Right, so we have a div here. Provide the class names for the logo. So we want the logo to be a height of 9, width of 9, and we have the background gradient to be from the bottom to right, and we have the background gradient. So we want to start from this color here, from sky blue 400 to a blue color 600, and we want to have a flex item center, justify center, and within this div we are going to have the SVG for the logo. So I'll copy the SVG, paste it right here, give it a save, and right after this div containing the SVG, we are going to have a span to have the brand name itself. So you're going to have a class name, and this class name is going to have this property. So the text, we want it to be large, we want the font to be semi-bold, and we want the text to be white for the brand name. So the brand name is going to be SafeReport. Now we can give this a save, even though we are not done yet. Move back to the layout and import the navbar. So we have navbar imported right over here. Let's move back to localhost port 3000 and check what we have on the screen. So we do have the logo, right? We do have the logo, and we do have the brand name. So I think we have to provide this class here. So let's have a class name here. Navbar. Within this nav, you're going to have a text of white. Move back, and we have SafeReport clear over here. And there is one more thing that we have to do regarding the logo and the brand. So we have to provide a rounded fill for this logo, right? To do that, we move to this div right here, and provide rounded XL around the logo. Move back, and boom, we have the SafeReport logo here and the brand name. So next, we are going to provide the nav link items. We scroll all the way here. and have this comment that's going to have the main navigation. All right, the main navigation. So we are going to have this div here and provide a class name. This is going to be a hidden by default, a hidden div by default, because we want to show this when we are not on the mobile screen, and when we are on the mobile screen, we want to hide this, right? So we do that or show this div when we are on the median screen. So median flex, we have item center, we have space X to be 6. Beautiful. So now we can add our links for the navigation items. So we are going to create the main navigation item. So we're going to have a link over here, and this is going to be href. We're going to have submit report, provide a class name. We have a text to be small, the text to be zinc 400, and when we hover on this link, we want to have this effect. Change the text from zinc 400 to white and have a transition in the colors. Transition colors. So I'll just copy this, paste it. So we are not done yet. We have to provide the name of the navigation item. So this is going to be submit report. Give this a save, copy this, paste it, I think 4 more times. And then we are going to have track report here. Track report. And we are going to have how it works. So right from track report, we are going to have, so track report is supposed to be here, track report. And we are going to have how it works over here. So how it works. And we are going to have the link to be how it works. How it works. And the last navigation item is going to be resources. So we have resources, and we are going to provide the link to resources. Beautiful. So we have everything created. And let's move back to localhost port 3000, and we can see we have all these links, displayed over here. All right. So we have all these links. When we try to move to the small screen, we can see we have the links disappear. Right. We have the links disappear. So back to the navigation, we are not done yet. We are going to create an emergency button at the top, like right over here. So you're going to have a div. And this div is going to have class name, flex, item, center, space X4. So let's add this comment here. That is going to say emergency button. All right, we have that. And we have a link. Oops, a link from Nest link. Which is going to have a link or a reference of contact. And then we have a class name. Provide a class name hidden MD block. So we do want to hide this by default, and on a medium screen we want to show this button. So text SM small, and we have the text zinc 400. When we hover on this link here, we do want to change the text to white. Provide the transition colors, give it a save, and have the link name to be contact. And then we have a button for the emergency. So we are going to provide a button over here, a class name, group, flex h9, items center, gap 2, we have rounded, full, background red, 500 divided by 10. And we have padding left to be 4, padding right to be 5. The font is going to be a medium font, and we want the text to be red, 500, and we want to provide a ring around this, this button, and have all these other classes. So I'll copy them, paste them over here, these other classes. So ring insert, ring red, transition all, and when we do hover on this, we want to change the background to from red 500 to red 500 divided by 20. And we are going to have this pan here, which is going to hold, a pulse animation. So class name, height to be 1.5, the width to be the same. We're going to have rounded, full, background red, 500, and animated pulse. So when we add this animation, class here is going to add a pulse animation to whatever div that it was added to. So in this case, it was added to a span. And within the span, we are going to have emergency 911. So we give this a save and move back to our localhost port 3000 and see what we have. And we have the navbar created beautifully. So we have the brand and the brand name. We have the navigation links. We have contact, and we have this button here with a pink animation, and we have emergency 911. So next, we are going to work on the mobile navigation. So let's create, let's have a comment here that is going to say mobile menu button. So we have that over here, and we are going to create the mobile menu button before we do create the actual mobile component. So to create the mobile menu button, we are going to have a button, create a button element. So this button element is going to have the class name to hold the property of the menu item. So we want to hide this on a medium screen because we do want to show the mobile menu on a small screen. And we have a padding of 2. We have a text zinc 400. When we hover on this text, we want to have a text color to be white and provide an on-click event. When we click on this button, guess what we want to do over here? If you guessed that we want to change the state of the mobile menu open, you are right. So what we want to do here is to update the state when the user click on the mobile menu item. So yeah, that is what is going to happen over here. So when the user clicks on this mobile menu button, we want to set the mobile menu to open so that we can have a drawer animation that will trigger when the menu item is being clicked on. So we are going to set the state of the mobile menu to be true, and anytime the user clicks on this mobile menu button, you're going to show a drawer that is going to have the menu items on the mobile screen. Right? So let's just have that. Set is mobile menu to true. And then we are going to have an SVG for the mobile menu. I'll copy that, paste it over here, and move back to localhost. Try and shrink the screen. And boom, we have the hamburger icon here. When I click on this, nothing happens. because we do not have a component to render the mobile nav bar. So that is what we are going to create next. Back to component, we create a new file named mobile menu.tsx. And basically, everything is going to be very similar to the navbar because we have created the navbar links and the main navigation items already, which are going to be quite similar to what you're going to have, or if not the same to what you're going to have in the mobile menu. So I will import link from next link and have an interface for the mobile menu prop. So we create a TypeScript interface. You're going to have mobile menu props, and this prop is going to have two properties. So you're going to check is open, which is going to be a boolean, a type boolean, and have an onClose, which is going to be a void, a function. So we have void, and let's have the main component created. So export default function mobile menu, and we have is open state. We pass down the is open state from the mobile menu prop. We are going to pass down from the navbar this component over here. We have onClose, and we spread the mobile menu props. Then we have our component body created, right? So we are going to check if not is open, meaning if we don't have the hamburger icon triggered to open the drawer, we just want to return null, essentially. Else, we want to return the mobile div. So we just have the div here, having class name, fixed, insert 0, Z50, MD hidden, and then we are going to have the backdrop. The backdrop, we have a div for that. So we create a div, class name, fixed, insert 0, background black, divided by 60, and we have backdrop, blur for that matter, to have the backdrop. And when the user clicks on the backdrop, we want to trigger the onClose function. So on click, we want to have the onClose function, right? Awesome. So this is going to be a self-closing div. And the next thing we are going to do is to create the menu content. So basically, these are very similar to what we had in the main navbar. So I'll copy that and paste it over here, with the exception of the class names. So we are rendering everything in a vertical manner as opposed to the horizontal manner inside the main navbar component. So I think with that, we just created our navbar mobile menu component. We can save this, move back to the navbar and paste it or import it right here. So we scroll all the way down here. We are going to have mobile menu, and this is going to, you're supposed to import this mobile menu, and we have is open as a prop, and we are going to provide the is mobile menu open, the one we created over here, as a state, and provide an onClose function. Remember, these are the props that we created in the mobile menu component. So the component is expecting these, the is open and the onClose function. So we add onClose. So what the onClose function is going to do is to set the state to false. The set is mobile menu open to false. Set is mobile menu open to false. And we are done. Oops, equals sign over here. So we can move back to localhost port 3000. Try and have this rendered in the mobile view. We have the hamburger icon. When I click on it, we have these menu links displayed vertically. And then when we close on this, we can move back to the main page. When I click on the backdrop, it gets closed as well. So yeah, we are done creating the navbar for this project. Next, let's create the rest of the items of the home page. So back to our code editor and navigating to the page.tsx, we can have the code over here. So we are going to modify this to look exactly like what we have in the home page, right? So let's get rid of everything here and import link. From next link, we are going to have export default function. We have home. This is going to create the functional component for the home page. And we are going to return the following divs. So we are going to have the main div and have these class properties. So class name, we're going to have relative and px6. We have padding top to be 32. And we are going to have a div within the main div with class name or these class properties. So we have mx auto, meaning we want to push everything in the center. We have mass width to be 5xl. And within this div, we are going to create our hero section. So when I save this, move back to localhost port 3000, we don't have anything here. So let's work on the hero section. Add a comment here that says hero section. Then we create a div, have these class properties, flex of column, item center. And we have test center. Then we are going to have a second div to contain the SVG for the logo, right? For the logo. So I'll copy that div, paste it over here, and we have the div pasted over here. Awesome. So let's add a closing tag to the div and add the SVG for the logo. So let's add the SVG, which also happens to be the logo for this platform. Copy the SVG, paste it over here. Move back to localhost, refresh the page, and boom, we have it over here. So next, we are going to add a text right next to this logo. So let's add a text, which is going to be secure and anonymous reporting. Give it a save, move back, and we have that over here. Things are starting to take shape. We are going to create a header that is going to have these tests. So we create h1, provide class name. We have margin top of 8, background gradient to bottom. Then we provide all the gradients. So copy everything and paste it over here. We have that. And write the text report incident, give it a save, move back, and boom, we have report incident here. And we have the second test which is going to be within a span, because we want to have a different color and different style for that text inside the H1. So we have these classes, block, we have the background gradient to right, and we have from sky 400 to blue 500. The background is going to have a clip, text transparent. So let's have the text here, which is going to be protect identity. Give it a save, and we have it over here. So what we just did here was to create a gradient within the text. So using these class properties, the background clip text, and we have the text transparent. We have these properties with a background, we can create a gradient within a text. Right, let's have the paragraph right after the header, which is also going to have these class properties. So margin top of 6, we have max width 2XL, 2XL, text to be large, leading relaxed, and we have text zinc 400. So right, so we paste the following paragraph over here. So we have that over here. Give it a save, move back, and boom, we have the paragraph over here. Beautiful. So let's work on the other sections of the home page. So right after the paragraph, we are going to have this div to it's going to be a button with a text, make anonymous report. So right after this paragraph, we are going to have a div that is going to be a button, and this button is going to have a text of make anonymous report and a second button that says how it works. So all these buttons are going to be in a row form. So we create a div to contain these two buttons. So we have a div, provide a class name, margin top of 10 to create some space at the top of this div. We have flex column, and we have on a small screen, we want the flex to be in a row form, and we provide a gap of 4, have a link, Nextjs link, with the reference to the submit report page, and we are going to have a button, style this button, group, relative, flex, H12, and these following CSS properties. I'll copy them and paste them over here. Awesome. So you can pause the video and type these CSS properties before we continue. And the text inside this button is going to be make anonymous report with an SVG. So let's add the SVG, copy the SVG over here and paste it here. Awesome. And the next link is going to be a button as well with the same properties as this one. So I'll copy that, paste it over here, and then modify the href from submit report to how it works, get rid of the SVG, and add the text here, how it works. So let's save this, move back to localhost port 3000, and there we have it. We have these two buttons with make anonymous reports, second one saying how it works. So next, we are going to work on features grid. So you're going to have a grid that will talk about the features we have in this application. So let's work on that. We are going to create this div over here, leave a comment that says features grid, a div, add a class name, margin top of 40. We have grid gap 6. On the small screen, we want the grid to be of column 3. So grid calls 3. And then we are going to have an array which we are going to loop through for the features grid, right? So let's start by creating this object and have these arrays of objects. So the first item in the array is going to have these properties. You're going to have a title, a description, and an icon. So I'll copy the title, description, and icon for the first item. Paste it over here. So we have the title here, and we have the description, we have the icon, right? Let's create the second element or second item in the array. We're going to have an object which is going to be very similar to what we have here. So I'll copy that as well. We have the title, we have the description, and we have the icon, right? And we have the icon. So title, description, and icon. Then we're going to have the last item. We paste that over here, which is going to be the secure communication, and it's having its own description and icon. So we have those pasted over here. We can loop through the array and display them at the front end. We just have to loop through all these arrays and render them at the front end. So .map over here are the features, and we have the index. Features index, and we are going to have a div with a key of the index. In React, when looping through a list of elements, you have to add a key, which helps React to work fine on your project. So in React, you have to add a key when looping through a list of items. So you provide a class name as well. Class name, supposed to be here. We have group, relative, overflow, hidden, rounded to Excel, BG Zinc 900, padding 8, transition all, and we have hover to be background color to change to Zinc 800 divided by 80. And we are going to have a div within this div to render the items. So we are going to add this div here, which is going to be a subtle animation for all the card inside the items. I'll demonstrate that to you in a second. So let's copy this div here and paste it over here. So we have that div pasted. Next, we are going to create a div for the items. So we have class name, relative, we have a div, provide class names for the items. So margin bottom 5, text inline supposed to be flex, we have rounded XL, and we have background sky to be 500 divided by 10, and we have P3. So this is going to be the style of the icon. So you want to have this background color on every icon that we are displaying over here. So we display the icon like this, features, the one we have here, dot icon. Remember, we have icon as a property of this object inside the array. So icon, we have icon over here and here as well. So we have the icon, and next we have h3, add class name, margin bottom of 3, text large, font medium, and the text is supposed to be white. So that's going to be the feature dot title. So let's make it singular. Feature, that makes sense. So let's get rid of the extra s. So let's get rid of the s and then make it singular. And the final item we are going to display inside this div is going to be the paragraph to hold the description. So we have the class name for the paragraph, text small, leading relaxed, text zinc 400. And we have the feature dot description. Awesome. So let's save this and move back to localhost port 3000 and see what we have on the screen. And there we go. We have that over here. So notice we have this little gradient fading from the bottom to the top, fading from the top to the bottom when we hover on each of these cards. So that is the div we imported over here. So this div is responsible for that. You can have a look at it and implement it in your own project. So you have the div responsible for this effect. So next, let's create our last section inside the homepage, which is going to be the start section. Start section. We have a div as usual to house all the elements that we are going to have for the start section. So margin top 40, we have rounded 2XL, background zinc 900, padding 8, create a div, add a class name, grade gap y of 8. On a small screen, we want to have the grade to have 3 columns. So grade calls 3, and then we are also going to have an array of objects for the start as well. So technically, this is supposed to come from the database, but since we haven't set up the database, we are going to hard code the statistics. So let's have those objects over here. I'll copy and paste them over here. So we have these objects and loop through them. Map, we have stats, and we have the index. We are also going to provide a key to the div as we did. So we are supposed to have this, a div, add a key for index, and have a class name for test center. Create a div, have a class name, text 3XL, font bold, text white, and this is going to be the value for the start. So you have start.value, and we are going to create a div for we have class name, margin top of 1, test sm, test zinc 400, and that is going to be our statistic label. So we have stats dot label over here. We give it a save and move back to localhost, and there we go. We have the statistics showing over here. So the last item we are going to add is going to be called the trust badge. The trust badge. So we are going to have a div with these class properties: margin top of 40, margin bottom of 20, flex, justify center. We have a div, class name, inline, flex, item center, gap 3, rounded, full, and we have the background colors and these properties. So I'll copy that and paste them over here. So you can pause the video and write or type them. So we have that, and the span within this div to hold the text: trusted by law enforcement nationwide. Provide a class name, h 1.5, width to be 1.5, rounded, full, and we have background emerald 500. All right, so let's save this and move back to localhost port 3000 and see what we have on the screen. And there we go. We have trusted by law enforcement nationwide. All right, so we are done with the home page. Now let's move to submit reports page and continue on with the rest of the pages. Next, we are going to work on the submit reports page. So let's create that folder. Inside the app directory, we are going to create this folder named submit reports. And inside this folder, we are going to have page.tsx. So inside this page, we are going to write the code that will be responsible for submitting a report. So we start by export default. We want this to be a functional component. So we write export default function submit report. Then we are going to return this element. So we start by writing this div here with the following class properties. So this is going to be a relative. It's going to have a relative class, mean height to be screen. The background is going to be black. Selection of the background is going to be sky 500 divided by 20, and we have overflow to be hidden. All right, so let's have the gradient background over here. So we are going to provide a subtle gradient over here. So let me paste that code. And we have the code responsible for the gradient background. So next, let's write our main element. So inside this main element, we are going to have a class name of relative, px of 6, and padding top of 32 to create a space, between the navbar and the submit report component. And we have a div within the main element, which is going to have a class name mx auto. We want to put everything at the center, and we have mass width 3xl. Then we have this div, provide a class name flex column item center, and the text supposed to be center. And we have this div, the class name. So this div is going to have an SVG icon to display the logo of our project, right? The SVG of our logo. So I'll copy this style, basically the same as what we have in the navbar and in the home page. So copy the class, paste it over here, and copy the SVG as well. So I'll paste the SVG over here. And within the SVG, we are going to have secure and anonymous. Give it a save, move back to localhost port 3000, refresh the page, and we have to navigate to the submit report page before we'll be able to see the changes that we made in the code. Click on submit report, and there we have it. We have the secure and anonymous with our logo at the left hand side, right? So back to the code, we are going to have an H1 to contain the test submit anonymous report. And we have these class names. We are going to have margin top of 8 and background gradient to the bottom. We have from white. You know what? Let's copy the classes and then paste them over here. So I'll copy everything, paste it over here. So from white and to white over 80, we have the background clip text to be 5XL, the font to be bold, tracking tight, and text to be transparent. And we are going to have the submit anonymous report. Back to localhost, refresh, and then we have this text here, largely and visible, rendered beautifully. All right. So next, let's create a paragraph beneath this header. So right beneath this header, we are going to have the paragraph. So let's copy the paragraph and paste it right here. So it says your safety is our priority. Back to localhost, and we have that paragraph rendered here as well. So next, we are going to have let's have a div to contain the actual form to submit the report. So we create this class name here, margin top to be 16, the background to be zinc 900 over 50, and we have rounded 2XL. We have border, and we have border white divided by 5, padding of 6, right? And within this div, we are going to have the form to submit our report. So the form is going to be report wizard. We don't have it yet, so I'm just replacing it by a comment before we create this component. So back to the localhost port 3000, we don't have any form here yet. So we have to create the form component. So inside the component folder, we are going to create additional folder named report, which is going to have all the components that we are going to create for report. So inside the report, we create this file named report wizard.tsx. Inside here, we are going to write a code that is going to show us which component to be rendered based on our current step. So what I'm trying to mean is, when we open this page, the submit report page, what we are going to see is a form to submit a report. And after user is done submitting a report, they are being shown a different page that displays the report's ID, right? So that page is going to be current page 2. And the first page that appears for the form submission is going to be page 1. So we are going to have the code here, use client, import useState from React, and we are going to import two components here. First one being the report form, and the second one being after the form has been submitted. So report submitted. These two components are going to be rendered. So we export this, we create this as a functional component, report wizard, and then we are going to have a constant to keep track of the current step. So you're going to have the current step, set current step, That's going to be use state 1, and we have constant report data, set report data to be use state. That is going to have a type of any, and we have null. So what this state is going to do is to keep hold of the report data after we are done submitting it, to be able to get the report ID from it and display it to the user so they can keep track of their report. So we have that created, and we create a function to handle the step completion. So handle step complete. This is going to be an async function. Provide the data as a prop with type any. Inside here, we are going to set the report data, update this report data to whatever we are getting from the report data after we are done submitting the report. We spread the data. And over here, we are going to have this code here. So if current step equals 2, we want to return. Else, we want to set the current step. We pass in the previous step and add 1 to the previous step. So if we are already in step 1, we are going to have step 2. And if we are in step 2, we are going to have step 3. So let's make this step 3 instead. Next, we are going to return. We have div, provide class name, rounded to XL, background to be zinc 900. We have padding to be 8, right? And inside here, we are going to render the component based on the step. So if the current step equals 1, we want to render report form. So we don't have report form yet. Let's go ahead and create report form and import it over here. So inside the report folder, we are going to create a new file named report form.tsx. So inside this component, we are going to write the code to submit our report, the report form. So we have use client, and we are going to import use state and use callback from React, and we are going to start writing the code for the report form, right? So we are going to have this type created to have or contain the report types. So constant report types, and these are going to be the report types. So you want this to be constant. We have theft. Just copy everything, paste it over here. We have theft, fire outbreak, or these other reports. So you can choose to add any reports that you want, right? And we have the type, report type, which are going to be 2 types. So you're going to have emergency and non-emergency. You have interface. We create an interface for the report form props. We have onComplete function, which is going to have data as a parameter. The type is going to be any, and this is going to be void. So we have void over here. Give this a save. Create our functional component. So export function, report form, pass in the onComplete. From this interface, we extend the report form props, and we have our functional body created. So next, we are going to have this state to hold the form data. So we're going to have this state. We have the incident type, we have the specific type, location, description, and title as part of the form, right? And we are going to have a state to hold the image. Remember, we are submitting a report, so we have to add an image, right? So we create a constant image, set image, and we have a use state. There's going to be a use state. So we add use state, string, now and we want to create a state if the AI is analyzing the image. Remember, during the demo, when we upload an image, the AI will try to create a description based off that image. So we have to have a state to store if the image is being analyzed, and also we have to create a state to store the coordinates of wherever we are reporting the incident. So you're going to have that state over here. So we have coordinate, latitude and longitude, right? And then we are going to have a state for a submitting. So you want to keep track if we are submitting the form or not, right? So we are not going to create the handle image upload for now because we haven't created the API to analyze the image. So you're going to do that later on, right? So let's just create the form. Let's create the form, and then we can render the form at the reports wizard section. So return form, and we are going to have these class names for the form. So space y to be 8, and we are going to have the emergency type selection. Emergency type selection. We have a div, provide it with class name. So we have grade calls, 2 calls. The gap should be 4. We create a button, the type button, and then we have an on-click event, which is going to, so what this on-click event is going to do is to set the form data. So we want to update the incident type, right? So we had an error here. We are supposed to put each of these types, in the quotation, and we have the pipe symbol and the quotation for the non-emergency type as well. But what we did was to combine everything together. That is not going to work, so we just have to do it this way, right? And next, we are going to have the class name, the CSS class, which is going to be responsible for changing the background color based off which type that we select. So when you select an emergency, you're supposed to have a different background color. When we select non-emergency, we are supposed to have a different background color for this button. So you're going to have the class name over here. We have the padding to be 6. We have the 8 rounded 2XL. We have border 2, transition, or duration 200. And we are going to have this. So if the form data dot incident type equals emergency, we want to render this. else we want to render this. So if the type is indeed emergency, we want to have these class properties. Else we want to have these class properties. Save it, and inside the button we are going to have a div with these class properties. So we have class name flex call, item center, space y to be 2. Then we have the SVG icons for the emergency type. So we have an SVG icon for the emergency type, and have this span that have the text emergency. So we have class name for this. So we have class name, font medium, text red 500, and we have a span, class name, text XX, we have text to be zinc 400, and we have immediate response required. Right. So the next button we are going to create is going to be for the non-emergency, and these are going to be very similar. So I'll copy that. So starting from the button over here, just copy it and paste it right after this button. And basically what we are going to change is the incident type from emergency to non-emergency, and change some classes, test orange instead of the red that we had for the emergency type. So these are basically the things that we have to change, and change the test as well. So from emergency to non-emergency, and this test also here. So I think we can save this and import it in the report wizard before we continue with the report form component. So next on the list is going to be image upload. But let's just see what we have done so far. Back to report wizard. We can now call report form from report form, and have these props. So remember, we have incomplete prop as part of the report form component. So this is going to be the handle step completion, right? To update the step. So once we are done importing the report form here, we have to import the report wizard inside the submit report page, else we won't be able to see anything. So we're back. So when I move back here, you can see we don't have the form here, the button for emergency and non-emergency over here. So let's have the report wizard imported. So report wizard, we have to make this capital R for report wizard. Give this a save and move back to localhost port 3000. We have emergency and non-emergency button rendered over here. So when I hover on this, we have this cool background change. Click on this, we have the emergency selected. Click on this, we have the non-emergency selected, right? So things are starting to look beautiful and take shape for the project. So next, let's work on the image upload form and then the rest of the input field to submit a report. So back to report form, we are going to have the image upload. So you're going to have this div here, class name, elective, group, and we have input, type, file. We have all these things here, so let's just copy them and paste it over here. With the exception of onChange, since we haven't created a function for that, I'll get that commented, and we're going to have a label for the image, right? So this label is going to have this class, properties, and the HTML4 is going to be image upload, since we have that as an ID inside the input component, input element, right? So if we have an image uploaded, that is going to be handled at the handle image upload. So we work on that, but just follow along. If you have an image uploaded, we want to render this. Else we render this. So if we do have an image, we want to preview the image, right? So we have this div here, which is going to preview the image that we have uploaded, right? We have that here. And else, if you don't have any image uploaded, we want to show a form that will ask the user to upload an image. So we are going to have that div over here and paste it over here, right? Drop an image or click to upload. So you can pause the video or check the complete code and copy that as well and follow along, right? So let's move back and see what we have on the screen. So we have the image upload div. Beautiful. And next, if the image is being analyzed by the AI, remember we haven't created that feature yet because we need to set up the Prism database, have our APIs before we can make that work. So let's have that component. So we check if the code is being analyzed by the AI. We check is analyzing using the state, is analyzing. We want to show a spinner, which happens to be an SVG. So we have the SVG, which is going to be the spinner. And we have the test that says analyzing image for the image, right? So now let's work on the form, the specific report type form, right? Let's work on the form. So we have a specific report type, and we have a div which is having these elements. So you first have a label for the incident type, create a class name block, test SM font medium, test zinc 400 MB2 with the label name incident type. This is going to be a select element, right? Because we want to render all the types, these types over here, these report types, and then render them at the selection element, at the select element. So we have the select element, and this having a value. So we have a value for the select element to be form data dot specific type, right? And the onChange. So anytime a user selects a specific type, you want to have it's being saved in the state. So that's the uses of this onChange event. So we are going to have the set form state updated. We have the previous state, and we are going to spread the previous state and append the specific, keep the previous state of the form data, and append the specific type value that has been selected by the user. So target.value and provide class name for the select element. So I'll copy the class name, pause this video, and type out the class names. And this is going to be a required field. So we add a required property. So over here, inside here, we have the option option, and the option is going to have a value, an empty string. First, we have to add an empty string first. That is going to tell the user or indicate the user to select a type, right? And then we loop through all the types that we have. Report types.map. Using the map function, we loop through. We have the type, and we have the index. And we have the option, key. We have the key supposed to be the index, and the value supposed to be the type, right? So the type is going to be all these types: theft, fire outbreak, medical emergency, and the others. So let's provide the types over here, give it a save, move back, check what we have. So incident type, we have all this rendered. Beautiful. So let's continue with the rest of the code. We are going to have location next. So with the location, we are going to have that to be a separate component. So let's just have location input. Let's comment it here and create a component for that. So inside the report folder, we are going to create a new file named location input.tsx. And for this location input, we are going to use this package called Mapbox. So let's move back to our browser and let's navigate to this this link, which will be added in the description as usual. So we have this, So we are going to sign in first before we can get our API keys. So I already have an account. If you don't have an account, sign up before you can have access to those API keys. As soon as you are done logging in, you're going to have this default public token. Copy it and save it somewhere else. We are going to use this later on in this tutorial. Back to React Quick Start. So after you are done copying it, move to this URL, which will be placed in the description as well. When we scroll all the way down, we can see the installation procedure, right? Or steps. So let's copy this and install the Mapbox Search.js React. So let's copy this and install the Mapbox component. So what we want to do with this component is, as soon as a user starts typing a location, we want to auto suggest, the location for them, right? So that's the whole point of having the Mapbox Search.js API. So let's install this component package. We have yarn add Mapbox Search.js, right? So we can start writing the component. Whilst we wait for this to get installed, let's start writing the code for this component. We're going to start by importing useState from React and import the address autofill, which is going to come from the Mapbox Search.js React API. Since we haven't installed that yet, we are still in the process of installing it. So we have to wait for this to get done before we can actually use it. But we can import it and still wait for it to finish the installation. So address autofill from Mapbox Search.js React and have an interface for the location prop. So the location prop is going to have this interface. We're going to have location input prop with the value, the onChange function, and the coordinate change. On coordinate change, right? We export function location input. We provide the value on change and on coordinate change, which we are going to extend the location input props. So we create a constant to hold the state of we getting the location. So it's getting location, which is going to be a boolean, and let's have that state over here, and a state for location error. Paste those over here. And we are going to have a function to get location, right? A function to get location. So let's copy that function over here. And explain the code line by line. All right, so what this get location function is doing is to get the coordinates of the user. So suppose the user is reporting the incident from San Francisco. We get the coordinates of the user and add it to the report submission so that the authorities responsible for acting on this incident can know the exact location of wherever the incident was reported, right? But before we do that, we have to seek permission from the user and even check if the user browser accepts the geolocation, right? So all these are parts, and we have this switch statement that shows whether the permission was denied or the position was unavailable or there was a timeout. So each of these conditions are having an error attached to it. So we throw an error, and then we have this object here. So we have this object here that says enable high accuracy. So what we are doing here is to make sure we have the highest accuracy of the coordinates we are getting from the user, right? And we are distracting the latitude and longitude from position.coord. We have the onCoordinate change. We have the onChange function here. We handle any error that may occur, and we set the getting location state to false, regardless anything that happens within this try-catch block. Next, let's return the main component. So we return. We have a div with class name space y2, and we have a label for this location. So the label location, and we have a div that is going to have the address autofill we are getting from the this package here, Mapbox search.js React. So we have class name relative, and we have the auto address autofill. We provide the access token. So remember, when we signed up for Mapbox, I said we should keep the access token somewhere safe. So we are going to use this access token to render our address autofill. So I already have a .env environment variable here. So we just have to add next public Mapbox access token as the token name or the environment variable name, and you provide the token. So this is mine. I'll just copy mine over here. You are supposed to copy yours as well, right? Right after these tutorials, I'll get rid of this token. So if you are copying this exact token, you won't be able to use it in your application. So once we are done creating this variable, we can access it over here. Process.env.next public Mapbox access token, and we have an input element over here. So this input element is going to handle the search, right? The search input. So we have the input type text, autocomplete to be street address, and we have value, the value property. We have onChange, and we have placeholder. We have the class name. So you can copy this, pause the video, copy this code, and let's continue. Right, so I can save this, and we have a button. So this button is going to help the user get the coordinate, right? So you have to add that button inside this div here. So the button is going to be this one over here. We have the type button. On click, get location. Remember this get location function that we created. So all this is doing is to get the coordinates from the user. And we have the class name. We want to disable this when the is getting location is false, is true, and we have the title of the button. So what do we want to display inside this button? If the get is getting location state is false, we want to display an SVG. And if it is true, we also want to display an SVG. So I'll have that copied over here. So we have this is getting location, and we render this SVG. And if the state is false, we render this SVG. So we are going to get what I'm trying to say when we save this and render it at the front end. And the next thing we are going to do here is to display any error that we may get from accessing the location or searching the or having the address autofill, right? So we have a state here that says location error. If that is true, you want to render the error inside this paragraph with this SVG icon. We give this a save. Notice we have this red wavy line under this package. So there is nothing wrong with this package, just that we don't have a TypeScript type for this package. So what we are going to do here is to add this code here, this line of code that says at TypeScript no check. So this is going to temporarily get rid of any check, any TypeScript check, so that we can have this wavy line disappear from this component. So technically we are done creating the location input form, location input field. We can import it over here. So we have location input. We have to provide the necessary props before we can render this. So what are the props that are required for this input? What are the props required for this input? So let's move back to the location input, and we have all these props. So we have the value, we have onChange, and we have coordinate, right? We have coordinate. So back to report form, we are going to provide the value. So what do you think the value is going to be for this location input? We are going to get the value. We pass down the value, this one, from data dot location. So from data dot location and we have onChange, which we are going to pass in this value, and we update the set form data. So we have previous, we spread the previous data in the state and append the location that we will enter inside the location input component. That's going to be value. It's supposed to be this. Awesome. And we have the onCoordinate change. So just provide this callback, latitude and longitude. You have set coordinate, latitude to be lat, and longitude to be L and G. So we have the location, move back to localhost port 3000, and we have we should have the location field here. Yes, we have it here. So when I try to search for something like New York, we have the address autofill, right? So we are getting this from Mapbox. I actually thought of using Google Map, but it requires a credit card. So I decided to go for a free option. So that's why we are using the Mapbox instead of Google Map. So yeah, that is it. We have to add the other input. So the next input we are going to have is the title. So the title of the report, I'll copy that and have it over here. So right after the location component, we have the title. Move back and we have the title here, report title. You can pause the video and copy this code. They are basically an input field with a label, and we have the onChange, which is very similar to all the onChange we are having in this code. So you can pause this video and copy it. The next on the list is going to be the description. I will copy that as well. Basically same as what we had for the report title, but instead of we having input, we are using test area over here. So just change the input to test area, and that will be it for description. And finally, we are going to have the submit button, right? So the button is going to be right here. So what we are doing here is very simple. We have a button with type submit, and we want to disable this button if we initiate the form submit function. We have this class name, and if we are submitting a form, we want to show a spinner. So this SVG is a spinner. Else, we just want to have the button title, which is submit report, and this SVG icon over here. So we can save this and move back to localhost. Boom, we have everything here. We have the emergency type, report type, emergency and non-emergency. We have image upload form. We have incident type. We have location. We have report title, description, and everything that we need to submit a report. So next, we are going to set up the database and set up the APIs to analyze these images before we move to track report, right? So let's set up our database. So for this project, I'll be using Prisma ORM. From my previous tutorials, I've been using Drizzle ORM, and this time I decided to go with a different option to see how it also works. So we have Prisma ORM documentation over here. So what is Prisma ORM? The ORM here stands for Object Relational Mappers. So what this is doing is basically to bridge the gap between relational databases and object-oriented programming. So to understand how Prisma ORM works, you can search this documentation website or watch this YouTube video. All these resources will be placed in the description. This course is focused on the practical approach on how to get Prisma started in your application, write some schemas, and push your code to the database of your choice, right? So you can read more of how it works on their official website. So to get started with Prisma, we have to install the Prisma client. So I have to copy this command here, move back to my terminal, paste it over here. So npm install Prisma client. Wait for this to get installed. I'll pause the video, and once it is done, I will resume back to this code. All right, so we are getting this error that says we couldn't find Prisma schema, which is required for this command. Right, so schema.prisma file not found. So we have to create this folder before we can use this command, right? So inside the root directory, let's create this Prisma folder. So inside here, we are going to have Prisma, create a new file named schema.prisma. Inside here, we are going to write our schema. Inside here, the first thing we are going to do is to have the generator client. So generator client, which is going to have provider equals Prisma client JS, and then provide our data source. Okay, So for this project, we are going to use PostgreSQL. So we have our database source, data source DB. To be the provider is going to be PostgreSQL. And we have the URL to be this. The URL is going to come from the .env file. So we have env, then we provide the name of the database URL. So we will go ahead and add the database URL after we are done completing the schema, right? And then we have to create a constant state for the report status. So to do that, we have to add this here, enum report status, and we have pending, in progress, resolved, dismissed. We're also going to have an enum for the report type. We have emergency, we have non-emergency. You're going to have, let's create the models for our database. So you're going to have a report model and a user model. So let's start with the report model. So we have model, report, provide an ID, which is going to be a string, and we want this to be the default CUID, right? So we have at default CUID, and we have report ID to be string, and this is going to be a unique field because we don't want the report ID to appear twice inside our database. So we have report ID created. We have the type. The which type is going to be report type. Remember, we created that over here. So we have report type over here. The title is going to be a string. So change this from lowercase to uppercase. So string. We are going to have description, the report type. We are going to have the location, latitude, longitude, image status created at inside this schema. So I'll just grab those and paste them over here. Paste them over here. Make sure we have this formatted correctly. Yes, so we have description, report type, location, we have the latitude, and all these other fields. The next model we are going to create is going to be the users model. So we have model, user, and we have ID to be an integer. We have ID, and it's going to have an auto increment. This is going to be an auto increment field, right? So we have auto increment. Provide the email, string, at unique. So the user is going to be the system admin, those responsible for acting upon these reports and incidents being reported by the users, right? And we have the name, which is going to be string. We have password to be string as well. Format this very nicely. And we have the role. So the role is going to be either an admin, a moderator, or a user, right? So we have role, and this is going to have, it's going to be default as a user, right? the default is going to be a user. So let's declare the role enum over here. So we have enum, role, and we have admin, moderator, and we have user, right? So this is going to be the schema for our project. The Prisma schema for our project. So let's create this database URL inside our environment variables. So we are going to add a new variable, which is going to be database underscore URL. So for this project, we are going to use Neon Console. So back to our browser, we have this URL here, which will be added to the links in the description. So once you click on this link, you'll be asked to sign up if you don't have an account with Neon Console. And if you have an account, you can go ahead and create a project. So we are going to create our project named Crime Report App. And the database name is going to be Crime Report App as well. So everything here can be ignored and click on Create Project button to initiate your project. So just confirm this. And there we have it. We have this beautiful dashboard being displayed for us. So as I mentioned, we are going to use Postgres SQL for this project. So we have the Postgres selected over here. All we have to do here is to copy the snippet. Copy this, move back to the .m file, paste it over here. And we have our database URL added to the Prisma schema, right? So we can run Prisma generate now to see what we are going to get. So there is one more thing that we have to do before we continue with setting up our Prisma. So remember, we are using Neon Console as our primary database with Prisma in this project, right? So to get everything working together, we have this URL that explains into details how to combine Prism ORM with Neon Console. So we have to install these as well. So I'll go ahead and copy these, move back to my terminal and paste them over here. So we have these packages installed. Next, let's push our schema to Neon Console. So we do that by using this command, Prisma migrate dev. Hit enter. So we move back to Neon Console and check our database. We should see these two models over there. So report and user. So let's move back to our Neon Console. Scroll all the way down here and select tables. We should see these models exported over here. So yeah, we have report and it has all the fields that we specified when creating our schemas. And we have the user with all the fields populated as well. Next, we are going to create a utility function that is going to handle our Prisma client connections. So what I mean by this is anytime we call or import this file, we are going to have the Prisma instance available in our code so that we will be able to add, update, delete record from our database, right? So let's create a new file inside this lib folder named Prisma.ts. So we have Prisma.ts and we are going to import Prisma client from Prisma client. So we have Prisma client from at Prisma client, and we are going to declare a global variable. So declare global variable, and this variable is going to hold the instance of Prisma. So we have variable Prisma, which is going to be Prisma client, or we write undefined. So it's either we are using the Prisma client or we have undefined to prevent ourselves from getting into any error. And we create a variable here, let Prisma, using the let keyword. This is going to be of type any, and we check. We have a check-ins. So process.env.node environment. So we are going to create a node environment which is going to specify whether we are in the development or production environment. So we check if the node environment is production. What do we want to do? We want to update this variable, right? Prisma to be of the new instance of Prisma client. That is if we are in production. Else, what do you want to do? You want to check if the global.prisma is undefined, right? It's undefined. We want to update the global.prisma state to the new Prisma instance. So we have Prisma client and we have Prisma equals global.prisma. And finally, we export the instance. So we have export default Prisma. And that's going to be the utility function that will handle our Prisma initialization. So we have that created, and yeah, I think it's time to insert into our database and perform CRUD operations, right? So let's move back to report form. Report form component, report and report form. Remember, I said we are going to create a function to handle the image upload and also handle the submission. So let's work on that and create our APIs to submit these reports into our database. Okay, so let's just do that. Starting from handle image upload. So we create a function, constant handle image upload, which is going to be an async function. We have event is going to accept an event. So react.change event. And we have HTML input element. Awesome. So first, let's create a constant to hold the file. e.target.files. And we check if the file doesn't exist, we return from this function. We don't execute the rest of the code. So we are going to get this from the handle this side here. When we scroll to the image upload, the onChange function here. So yeah, the event is going to pass down to this function and we can get hold of the file using this event object and access the target property and the files property. So if there is a file or if a file exists, we want to set its analyzing to true so that we'll be able to show a spinner to the user to enhance the user experience on what is going on with the submission. And we have this try-catch block here. So for this project, we are going to use Gemini AI to analyze the image of the disaster or the incident and generate a description for that incident, right? So everything that we are doing here is based on how Gemini AI processes image, right? So you have to create a base 64 image and send that to the API to handle the image analysis, right? So we create a constant here, which is going to be of base 64. And what we are going to do here is to have this async function. So we have await and we create a new promise, right? Create a new promise. We have variable called reader. So what this reader is going to do is to read the file. So in this case, the image, and we have this reader.onloadEnd function. We resolve that with the result and we have this function read as data URL, provided we pass in the file. So next, we are going to send an API request to an endpoint we are yet to create that will handle the image analysis. So let's have constant response await fetch. This is going to be the endpoint. So we have API analyze image. We are yet to create this endpoint. So API analyze image, and we are going to have the method is going to be a post request method post. The headers are going to be of content type application JSON file, right? So we have that over here, and we provide the body as the third option or parameter for this fetch function, right? So we have JSON.stringify. We stringify the image, and then we have the base64. So this is going to send the base64 to the Gemini AI. As I mentioned, we are going to use Gemini AI for this side. So the Gemini AI needs the base64 to make its analysis. After we are done with all this, we want to store the data in a variable. So we create a constant called a variable called data, which is going to have the response.json, whatever we are getting from the server, right? Now, once we get a response from the endpoint, we want to check for some few properties inside the data object. So these are the properties that we want to check, or these are the conditions that you want to check. You want to see if we have a title inside the data object. So if data.title, and if we have a description, so data.description, and data.report type, right? So if all these conditions are met, you want to set the form data. We have previous over here, the previous state, and we spread whatever data we have in the previous state. We add the title to it, which is going to come from data.title. We have description, and we have the report type, right? So we paste those over here, and finally we set the image to the base64 string, and any error that may occur, we log it to the console, right? Console.error, we log error, and we have the finally clause, finally, which is going to run regardless of whatever the outcome may be. So we set there is analyzing to false to indicate we are done with the image analysis, or there was an error, so we have to pause the analysis, right? So we have that. Next, we are going to create a function named generate report ID. All we are going to do here is to generate a hash using the crypto function. So let's create the function generate report ID. We have use callback. We are going to use callback, and inside this body we are going to create these variables. So we have timestamp date.now to string, date.now to string, and we have constant random byte to be crypto dot random byte. So first of all, let's import the crypto over here, the crypto package over here, crypto from crypto. So we create the random byte to be 16, and we have toString. toString, which we want this to be a has. And finally, we are going to have supposed to use callback. So we're going to have the constant or variable for the combined string, which is basically we combining the timestamp to the random byte that we generated. So we have combined string, the timestamp, and the random byte that we generated. And we are going to return crypto dot create hash. This is a function, so it's going to create a hash using the SHA-256. The SHA-256 is an encryption algorithm which is very secure, and we have update to combine string, right? We add the update function, and we have digest to be has, and then we slice starting from the first position all the way to the 16th position for or as our report ID, right? As our report ID. So the callback for this use callback is going to be an empty array. Empty array. So the last thing we are going to do here is to create the function to handle the submission, which we are going to have an API as well. We are going to send a request to an API. So we are going to create both the image analysis API and the submit report API, right? So to handle the submission, we have constant handle submit to be async, an async function. We have event react.form event we prevent default to prevent the form from refreshing the page after user submits a report. So we set is submitting to true, and we have this try catch block, right? So inside here, we're going to have a constant named report data, which is going to be the object containing all the fields that are being needed to submit a report. So I'll just grab all of those and paste them here. So the first thing is the report ID, which we are using the generate report ID function that we just created. So we have that, and the type is coming from the form.incident.type, and all the other fields we are getting from the form data, with the exception of latitude and longitude, right? The image is also having its own variable or state as well. So we get the image from the state, and we have the status to be pending. By default, we have the status to be pending unless an admin or anyone responsible for handling this incident update it from pending to whatever state that there is to update to, right? Next, we are going to create a constant. Next, we are going to submit all these data to the endpoint. So we have that over here. Create a variable response to hold the response coming back from the API after we create an incident or after we submit a report. So basically, we have this to be a post method. We have the headers, and we have the body to be JSON.stringify report data. Constant, we hold off the results in this variable, and if we don't get a successful, and if we fail to submit the report, we throw an error. Finally, we are going to have onComplete to be the result. So we are getting this onComplete as a props from the report wizard, right? Report wizard, because we want to get hold of the ID, right, of the report, and then display it to the front end for the user to use it to track their report. So we have onComplete to be result, and we handle the error. So we have console.error if you have an error, and we have finally, which is going to have a set is submitting to false. Set is submitting to false. So we have that, and we are going to add that to the form. So on submit, we're going to have handle submit, and on comment this out, and on comment this. So I think everything is looking great. Back to localhost port 3000. We have everything working fine. So the only thing left is to create these endpoints to handle the report creation and also the image analysis, right? So let's start with the route API. So what you're going to do is to create a new folder inside the app directory named API. And inside this API, we are going to have 3 folders. So the first one is going to be analyze image. The second one is going to be auth route page or folder, and the last one is going to be report, right? So let's start with the report and then work on the analyze image route. Inside this report API folder, inside this report folder, we are going to have 2 folders. So the first one is going to be the folder responsible for creating a report. So we have create, and we are going to have this folder called report ID. And what this folder is going to do is to accept an ID of a report and return the status of that ID of that report, right? So let's create route.ts inside the create and start writing the code to create a report, right? So what we are going to do here is to import next response from next server. So next response from next server, we are going to import Prisma. Remember the Prisma instance that we created inside the lib folder. So when we call Prisma, we are actually getting it from the lib folder. So we have Prisma imported, and we are going to import the report type from the Prisma client. So remember, we created a report type and a user type. So let's import report type from Prisma client. So this is what I am actually trying to mean, right? This type, right? This type. So we are going to have export async function. This is a post request. So we have the post, which have the request as a parameter. Request, and we provide a try catch block. Inside the try catch block, we get all these fields from the JSON object. Remember, we are passing down the JSON object alongside with the route, the endpoint. So this side over here, remember we are passing the body, so this report data. So what we do here is to distract everything from the request.json. And what do we do after we are done distracting all of these? We create the report using this function. So constant report equals await prisma.report.create. So this create function is going to create the report for us. So we have the data object with all these fields. So all these fields: report ID, type, specific type, title, description, and the rest, right? So we have them over here, and we are going to return next response.json. We have success true, and we have report ID to be the report.id, report ID, and we have the message to be report submitted successfully. So I'll add that message over here, and inside the catch block we are going to have the following. We are going to return this. We are going to return this. We are going to log this to the console and return next response.json to have the success or false and the error to be failed to submit report, and the status is 500. So with just that, we've created the endpoint for creating a report. So next, let's work on the code for getting a single report status. Then we create the analyze image endpoint. So we are going to have this file over here and a folder. So the file is going to be route.txt, and you're going to have this folder named details. Inside the details folder, we are going to create route.txt. So what this detailed endpoint is going to do is to help the admin or the emergency authority to handle the status of this report, to change the status from pending to completed. So this is going to be the endpoint to handle the update and all of that. So we are going to have this import next response, basically what we had inside the route, the create route, this side here, these things over here. So I'll just paste them, and we are going to have this over here, Prisma, new Prisma client, and we have export to be the get new function. We have the get function inside here. So you have export get function to accept a request and a parameter which happens to be the report ID, and we get that using the find unique function from Prisma to get the report ID wherever we have a match. And if not a report, or if we don't get any report back, we throw an error, else we return the report and catch any error that may happen. And we have the patch. So this patch is responsible for updating the state of the report by the admins. So we are going to create our own authentication flow for this project. Remember, we created a user schema in the Prisma client. So in the Prisma schema, so that is what we did over here. Using this, we will be able to create our own authentication flow. I will paste the code for patching the report over here, and then we are going to set up the authentication URL or endpoint. So I'll paste that over here, and we need, so for the patch, we have the report ID, ID as a parameter, and we have section. So this section is to check if the user has been authorized. If not, we throw this status 401, and we destruct the status, update the report with the status, and we return the next response.json. We catch any error that may occur. So we are going to have this imported over here, get server section. So we can pause the video and copy all these. Get server section and install NextAuth. So yarn add NextAuth. Whilst we wait for this to get installed, we can do some other things. So back to the route.ts. Inside this route.ts, we are going to have a patch function that will be used by the admins to update the status of a report. So what we had here, we had the patch as well, but we are not going to use that patch over here. So let's get rid of this patch and bring it over here. So take everything and bring it over here. So we have to add the import, paste them over here, and that will be it for the route.ts over here. So I think we are done creating the endpoint for the report. Let's work on the analyze image endpoint and test it out, right? So let's create the route for analyze image. So we have route.tx. Over here, we are going to import Next response and import Google Generative AI. So let's install the package. We have yarn add Google Generative AI. So we have that installed. We import it over here and create a constant to hold the initialization of the Google Generative AI. So this is going to be the constant Gen AI, new Google Generative AI, process the environment, get the Gemini API key. I will place a link in the description on where to get this Gemini API key. So we have export async function post. And we have request try catch, put everything in a try catch block. So we are going to have this constant to distract the image that we send or added it as part of the request inside the report form over here. Body, we have json.stringify image base64. So we are going to have that distract it over here, and we are going to get the actual base64 by having the image.split. We split everything by comma and access the first element after we are done splitting it to get our base64. And next we are going to have the model. So we initialize the model using the Gen AI, or the variable we declared over here, dot get generative model. So the model we are going to use for this project is going to be Gemini 1.5 Pro. Next is the prompt. So this is going to be the prompt for the image analysis. What we are telling the AI to do is to analyze this emergency situation image and respond in this exact format without any asterisks or bullet point. We have the title, the type, and description. So this is going to be the prompt for the AI. And we have model.generate content. So we generate the content by providing the prompt. We have over here and inline data object, provide the data, which is going to be base64 data. The MIME type is going to be image/JPEG. We have that over here, and we are going to have a variable to store the text or the response coming from the AI. So we have this variable here. The next thing we are going to do is to pass the response more precisely. So we are going to have these matches, so regular expressions to match. Once we get the response from the AI, it includes a title, a type, and a description. So what we are doing here is wherever we see a title, we extract it and store it inside this variable. For type, we do the same. For description, we do the same. And return the next response.json, return everything back to the caller, right? So return the title. You're going to have title match and .1.trim. Return the title. We have title match dot access the second element 1.trim. To have a fair idea of why we are doing this, you can place console.logs in between here to check every title match, type match, and description match, and know the reason why we are accessing it this way. Over here, the error section, we are going to throw this error that says image analyzing error in case we have any error. Awesome. So we give this a save, and I think we can test everything out. So before we test it out, let's add Gemini API key to our environment variable. So over here, .env, we are going to add Gemini API key to our environment variable. Paste mine here. Move back to analyze route. So I think we can test it out, test everything out. Before we test it out, let's move back to the report form. Report form over here and move back to report wizard. So over here, we have the current step just for the report form. We have to add additional step, which is going to display the report ID anytime the user is having a successful report submission. So let's add that before we test everything out. So for current step 2, we want to render the report submitted component. So let's create that inside this report folder. So you're going to have report form submission.tsx. Let's rename this to report form completed instead. So report form completed. And inside here, we are going to have use client. We have an interface for the report submitted prop. And we are going to have export function, the report submitted. What we are doing here is to just get access to the report ID and display it inside a nice modal, right? A nice modal. So we are going to extract the report ID from data.report ID. You distract that. If there is an error, we show this instead, ID not found, and return the actual component. So what do we want to return? We want to return a div with the class name test center space y6, and we are going to have this div and another div to have an SVG icon, which we are going to see in a second. SVG icon. And we are going to have H3 and a paragraph over here. H3 and a paragraph which says report submitted successfully, and we have this paragraph. And what we are going to do next is to display the report ID. So the report ID is going to be in a div. We have that div over here. You can pause the video and copy this code. So you have a div, header 4, and we have the code, right? Display the code, the report ID, and we have a paragraph over here. And the final thing that we are going to do is to add a button that will return the user back to the home page. So we have this button over here, and when the user clicks on this button, we use the window object.location.href equals /, which is going to take the user back to the home page. We give this a save and import it at the report wizard. Back to report wizard, we are going to have this over here. So report submitted, pass down the data prop to be report data, and we're going to pass the onComplete as well to handle complete. So basically the same handle complete, handle step complete, right? To update the step. So I think we can now test everything out. Back to localhost port 3000, refresh the page. So let's search on the internet for an incident image. So something like fire outbreak image, and have that saved. So let's have this. Let's choose this image and save it on our computer. So we have that saved back to localhost port 3000. Whilst this is a fire outbreak, it requires an immediate response. So let's click on emergency, upload the image, and we should see the description populated with the image description. And boom, we have it over here. So we have the title, house fire. A significant fire is engulfing a residential building. So with all these description, and it is able to also select the incident type, put in a random location, so something like New York, and we have the auto suggestion from Mapbox. Click on this and we can submit this report. So let's click on submit report. So we have this error that says cannot read properties of undefined reading report ID. So let's move back to the report form completed component. So report form completed over here. Over here. Report form completed. And so inside here we have data.report ID, and we are getting this data from here. It was passed down inside the report wizard. We passed down the data from this report. Okay, so we are supposed to write report data here instead of just reports. So technically, we are not passing down the report data to the report submitted component. Hence, we don't have the report ID property on the data object. That is why we have this error on the screen. So with that being fixed, let's refresh the page and try to submit a new report. So upload the image. And enter the location, New York. Click on submit report. Hopefully we should get something saved in our database. And boom, we have the report submitted. So we can copy this report ID, save it somewhere, and come back later on to use this very ID to track our report. So I'll copy this and paste it somewhere in my .env file, so we can use it to track our report. So let's give this a save and let's move back to our Neon console to see if we have something inserted in our database. So click on report, refresh, and boom, we have the report being saved inside our database. Awesome. So things are looking great. I think we can create the track report page and track our report, right? And track the report. So back to the code editor, we are going to create a new page named track report to track our report or to view our report, right? The status of the report. So we have track report, and we have page.tsx. In this page, we are going to have use client, and we are going to export default track report page. This is going to be a functional component. So track report page, and we are going to have these divs. So let's paste them here. Return these divs over here. Provide the closing element for all the divs. We save it, and inside here we are going to import a component named report tracker. So we don't have that yet, so we are going to create that inside the report folder in the component directory. So we're going to have report tracker, .jsx, tsx, TypeScript tsx. So we are going to have use client imported over here, import use state, and all these from Lucid React. So you're going to import a search icon and loader from Lucid React. We're also going to have this interface called report details. So these are going to be the details we are going to render inside this report tracker component. And obviously, this is going to be a functional component. So we have that, and add all these states. So we are going to have the report ID, the error, loading, and report details all stored in a state, use state specifically. Use state to be specific. So we paste those over here. Next, we are going to create a handle submit function, because when the user input their report ID, they will click on the button to get their report status, right? So we create a function that is going to call the endpoint and return for us the details of the report. So I'll paste that code over here. Over here, this is very similar to what we did at the submission of the report. So we have e.prevent default to prevent the browser from refreshing itself after user has submitted the report ID to get back the report details. And we set the state error state to an empty string, report details to null, and set loading to true. So we check if we don't have a report ID. So if the user hasn't entered a report ID, we set the error to please enter a report ID, set the loading to false, and return. Else, we create a try-catch block, which is going to send a request to this endpoint. Remember, we had this endpoint, API, report ID, details, right? We send a get request to this endpoint. Remember, we have a get function over here. So back to this side. Yeah. So once we get the response back from the API, we check if there is an error. We throw report not found. Else, we store the report result inside this variable called data and set the report details to data. Handle the error gracefully. We return the component to submit the report and display the report status. So we have a div to be class name width of full, and we create the header section of the report. So this is going to be the header section of the report. So basically, we have a search icon that we are getting from Lucid React icons, and we have track your report status test. We have the H1, which says track your report, stay informed, and a paragraph over here. So all these are just for display purpose, right? Displaying it to the front end to inform the user of whatever is going on this page. So next, we are going to have these divs over here, right? These divs over here to display the form section and the result section, right? So we have the form section, which is responsible for submitting the actual ID to the endpoint and getting back the response. And we have the result section to display the result. So in the form section, we are going to have this code over here. So we have the form over here. And what we are doing with this form is to submit the report ID to the endpoint. So we have the label, we have the input or change function to set the report ID to update the report ID with the event.target.value, and we have this state to check if we have an error. If there is an error, we display this SVG, and we have this button here to submit the report ID. So the type submit, disable loading. We have the class name over here, and we have the loading state to check if we are submitting the report. Provide the spinner, else display the search icon, and we dynamically render the title of the button, right, using the loading state. So next, we are going to have the div for the result section, right? So we have the div for the result section. We check in if we have a report details. We display or render every single thing about the report. So report details.status, report details.report ID, and every information that we need to show the user on the status of the report. We display everything here. So let's create this function get status color to help us display different colors based on the status. So that function is going to be very basic. We have get status color. We provide the status as a parameter, so string, and we get the color based on the status. So if we are on pending state, we have the yellow. If we are processing, we have the sky. If it's completed, we have the emerald. And if there is a failed report, we have the text to be read, right? And we return the status colors in lowercase, or we display it as white, right? So the main important thing in this page is to understand how we are submitting the report ID and getting back a response. So we use the fetch method, and this endpoint is a get. We have a get function inside this endpoint. So we get the status of the report from the API, and we display everything inside over here. Inside this div here, starting from this side all the way up to this side. So we can now track a report. Let's give this a save. Let's call the report tracker first. Report tracker. Give this a save and move back to localhost port 3000. Click on track report, and we have this beautiful form displayed over here. So inside here, we are going to paste the report ID I copied over here. So we have that inside my .env file. Copy it, move back to this side and paste it. Click on the track report button. So we have unable to find report. Please check the ID and try again. So let's check the Neon console to see if we actually have the report ID being saved in the database. So we do have the report ID saved. So we have this report ID, which is the same as what we have here, but it says report unable to find report. So there is something wrong with the endpoint. Let's try one more time and go back and fix this error. And over here, we should get a clear understanding of what is going on. So we have get API report details 500. Error code is undefined. Let's scroll the way up to see what is going on here. Error fetching report details, Prisma client initialization error, invalid Prisma report.find unique invocation. Interesting. Let's move back to the side here. Report details and check what is going on over here. To find unique, there is nothing wrong with this. Okay, so let's try one more time. So it worked without we changing anything in the code. So during the development of this project, I encountered a very similar problem. Maybe it might be because of my internet connection, because it said over here, please make sure your database server is running at this endpoint. So it might be my network. Let me know in the comment section if you faced the same problem, but it worked, right? We have the status here, we have the report ID, the date submitted, title, location, and description. So we do have our track report, working. So next, we are going to work on the dashboard for the admins and handle the authentication, create our own sign up and login flow for the admins, right? So back to the code. And inside here, we are going to create this folder named dashboard, and also create auth for the sign in and sign up pages. So dashboard, we are going to have page.tsx. Before we even start writing the code for the dashboard, I want us to create the API endpoint for the authentication inside the API folder. So we have auth folder created already. We are going to add these two folders. So the first one is going to be a folder with a special naming convention from Next.js. So we have Next, we provide 3 periods and have NextAuth. And within this folder, we create route.ts, and we are going to create the second folder named sign up and provide route.ts as well. Route.ts. So inside this NextAuth, we are going to have this piece of code which is going to handle our authentication with Nextjs, right? So we are going to import Prisma adapter from auth Prisma adapter. So we have to install that first before we import it inside our code. So yarn add auth Prisma adapter, run enter. So we have that installed, so we can import it over here. So we import Prisma adapter with NextAuth and credentials provider from NextAuth providers, right? And we are going to import bcrypt. So bcrypt is responsible for hashing the user password and storing the hash inside a database, right? We do not want to store the raw string of the password inside our database. So we have this bcrypt package here, which is going to decrypt the password that we encrypted inside our database. So let's install that package, yarn add bcrypt.js, and we are going to import Prisma client from the lib folder, So you have lib and Prisma. Oops, let me just write Prisma here. So import Prisma from @lib Prisma. Awesome. So we don't have a TypeScript type for bcrypt.js. So we are going to provide this comment or this line of code over here to get rid of the TypeScript error. So ts no check. And we create the handler for the authentication. So we have handler equals NextAuth, which we are getting from NextAuth, right? And we have adapter to be Prisma adapter. We provide the Prisma instance over here. Now, before we continue on to write the code for this handler, we have to create an auth utility inside this lib folder. So let's create auth.ts. So what we are going to do in this utility function is to have an auth option, which will be of an importance when we start writing the code for the dashboard for the system admins, right? So we have export, we have to import all these auth options, and we are going to export const auth options. We spread the types from auth option the one we imported over here, equals this object that we want to export. So we have providers, and we are going to enter our credentials provider. So what we do want to have over here is very simple. So we want to have credentials provider, and this is a function that accepts an object. The name is going to be credentials, and the credentials are going to have this object to have an email and a password property. So I'll just paste that over here. So we have email and password property, and we are going to have an async function. So async authorize, we have authorize credentials, and we have this check over here. So we check if we do not have any credentials. So if the email and the password is not set, we throw this error. And we are going to create this constant here to get the user from the database, right? So we have await prisma.user.findUnique. So we want to find the user where the email matches the email field inside our database. So if we do not find the user, so if user is not found, we throw this error, no user found. Else we want to decrypt the password using bcrypt, right? So we have password match, we await. So we compare the credentials.password, the one entered by the user, compare it with the user.password. So the hash that has been saved inside the database, right? And if there is no password match, we want to throw this error that says incorrect password. And if we have something, or if there is a match, we want to return the user. So we return ID, email, name, and the role of the user. And we are going to have these callbacks, right? These callbacks. So what these callbacks are doing here is to create a JSON web token to be stored inside the section, so that when the user refreshes the page, they are still they stayed logged in the platform, right? And we have pages, we have sign in, auth /sign in, and we have the section. The strategy is JSON web token. So the sign in page can be found when we navigate. So we are going to create a sign in page inside this auth folder. We are yet to create that. So I think we have to install the types for bcrypt before we will be able to have this red wavy line gone from the code. So let's paste it. Oops. So we have to view the problem. And copy this command here. Paste it over here. Save it. So we wait for a while for this to get installed, right? So now we are done creating the auth option. So let's move back to the route.txt inside the NextAuth folder, right? We are going to have providers. This is going to be very similar to what we had in the auth options, right? So we are going to copy most of the code from the auth.txt inside this side over here, right? So basically, we are going to copy everything here and paste it over here. So let me just copy that and paste it over here. Awesome. So there is one more thing that we have to check inside this code. So we have to export the handler as a GET request and a POST request. So we have export handler as get and handler as post. We give that a save, and we have to add this command over here, tx no check, to get rid of the red wavy lines. So we have a clean code here. Back to NextAuth, right? We are done creating the route or the handler for the authentication. So the next thing we are going to do is to work on the sign up route. So this is going to be a very simple component as well. So what you're going to do here is to create the post request to handle the sign up. We are going to have all these imported. We're going to import the Prisma, Next response, and bcrypt from bcrypt.js, and the spot async function post request and we have a try catch block here. So inside the sign up page, which we are yet to create, we are going to pass down all these objects or all these object properties from the front end to this API. So we're going to have the email, the password, name, and the role. So everything, basically everything that we need to create a user or sign up a user. So we are going to have a basic validation over here, which is going to be, we check if there is no email, or if there is no password, or if there is no name. We return next response.json with missing required fields. We also check if the user exists already. So if user already exists, we are going to have this code here to check. So what we are doing here is to find a user where the email matches whatever email the user entered. So if there is an already existing email, it means we have an existing user. So we use that to check if existing user. We throw this error, return next response.json, error user already exists, status 400. And then we hash the password. So we can now hash the password and save it inside our database. So the password hashing is going to be handled this way. So we have hashed password equals await bcrypt.hash, provide the password string and a salt, right? So the salt can be any number at all. So in this case, I will provide 10 to be my salt, right? And we create a user. To create a user, we just have to use the Prisma instance and call Prisma instance, access the model, and call this function, create function, which accepts an object. So we provide the data as the object for the user creation. And we are going to have remove password from response. So we don't want to expose the user password inside the response. That way, any attacker can get hold of it to do malicious activities, right? So we have this, and we are going to return next response.json with the user with password status 2000 status 201, and we handle any error that may occur, right? We handle any error. Beautiful. So we have the sign up route created. So next, we are going to create the sign up and sign in page and the dashboard page, right? So back to auth, we are going to create the sign in and sign up page. So we have sign in and sign up. The sign in, we're going to have page.tsx and have the same for the sign up, page.tsx, right? So for the sign in, I'll copy the code and paste it over here and explain everything line by line. So what we are doing here is we are calling the use client and we are importing sign in from NextAuth /React. So once we have this sign in, we can literally sign a user in using this function and having the credentials. Remember here, over here, we named our route, NextAuth route. We had the name of our provider to be credentials, right? So we have the sign in page over here. We import use state and use router from Next navigation. So we create all these states, a state to store the email, the password, the error, and its loading. And we have the variable for the router initialization, right? And we have a constant over here. So when we check the form, we have all the input field and everything to handle the other fields, right? Inside this form, we have an onSubmit function, which is called the handle submit. So what the handle submit function is doing here, first, we are preventing default to prevent the browser from refreshing anytime a user tries to click on the submit button. We set its loading to true and set error state to an empty string. So we sign the user in using this function, sign in function from NextAuth /React, provide the email, password, and we don't want to redirect. So we add this third argument, redirect to false. We set it to false. And if there is an error, we set the error state to be invalid credentials. Else, we push the user to the dashboard, right? We are going to demonstrate this in a bit. And we move back to the sign up page. It is also going to have a very similar flow. So for the sign up page, we are going to have this code over here. So we import use state and use router, import link from next link. And over here, we create a state to hold the name, email, password, and confirm password. We have a state for the error and its loading as we did in the sign in, right? So before I talk about the handle submit, let's go over the form. So this is also a basic form with 8 input fields. So we have the full name input field, we have the email address field, and we have the password and confirm password field. This is also a form. So anytime the user clicks on sign up, we are going to trigger the handle submit function. And over here, we are sending this request to this endpoint. Remember, we created a sign up endpoint. So API auth sign up. We are accessing this endpoint here. And inside this function, post request, we have the headers to be content type, application, JSON. And we have the body. So we send over the name, email, and password because those are the fields we are expecting from the sign up. Email, password, name, and role, right? And we wait for the response. If everything is okay, we have the response stored in this data variable. We check if the response was not successful. We throw this error. Else, we take the user back to the sign-in page and we handle any error that may occur. So we have this handle change function to handle changes inside the form. So to update the state of the input element, the name, the email, password, and forget password. So basically, that is what is going on over here. You can pause this video and copy the code, or you can visit the complete code repo inside my GitHub and, follow along, right? Copy the code and follow along. Let's give this a save. Move back to our localhost. We should be able to, have the sign in form and sign up form showed up here. So auth, sign up, and we have this beautiful form. So let's enter a name and the email, John Doe. The password is going to be password. Confirm password. Let's hit the sign up button and see if we will be able to sign up into the system. And voila, we have been able to sign up because we were redirected to the sign in page. When we check the sign up page here, we redirect the user to the sign in page after we have a successful account created, right? So we can check the neon console, refresh this page, and we can see we have the user that we just created. So we have johndoe@gmail.com, the name, and we can see the password has been hashed. So the row is a user by default. And yeah, we can see we have the password hashed and everything has been inserted inside the database. So let's try and log in. So the email was John Doe and the password was password. Sign in. So we have been taken back to the dashboard page, and since we don't have any code for the dashboard, we are not able to display it over here. So let's work on the dashboard and test things out. So dashboard page over here. For the dashboard, we are going to have use client imported over here, and we are going to have all these imported as well. So we are going to have the user, use section, use effects, use state, report, report status, and report type from Prisma, and a sign out from NextAuth React, right? So we have export, default, function, dashboard. Over here, we are going to distract the section from the use section and have these states created as well. We are going to have the report state, the filter state, and the type filter state and loading state, right? So all these are states that we are going to be needing in this dashboard, right? So let's create this function here that will help us get reports, or the reports that we have in the application, right? For the admin, right? For the admin. So we create a constant and we have fetch reports equals async, set is loading to true. We have the try catch block. Inside here, we are going to send a get request to fetch or report, right? Response equals await fetch API report. So when we move back here, we have report. So over here, we have to create that as well, the endpoint. So we create route.tx and we are going to have that code over here. So what we are doing here is to import next response from next server. We get the server section, import report status and report type from Prisma client, import Prisma instance, and auth options from the lib utility function that we created. So we are going to have the get function here, which is going to first get the section, right? And if there is no section available, we return, indicating that the user hasn't authenticated with the platform or the user is not authorized to perform this action. And we have this search params, which we are going to use to get or pass down the status and type down to this endpoint, right? So once we get the status and type from the URL using the search params object, we can now have a where clause to build our filters, right? So based on the selection of the admin, so for example, an admin may want to see all pending reports and the type of theft, right? So once they select the status and the type, they get appended to this URL, and we can get the status and the type from the URL and filter our filter whatever we want, right? So this is the where clause to build our filter. We add a timeout and a retry logic. There may be incidents where the fetching of the data may delay, so we have to add this timeout and retry logic to keep on trying to fetch all these reports till we get them from the database, right? And we return the next response.json with the report, catch any error that may occur, right? Any error that may occur. And we are going to be more specific with the error messages here. So if we have this error message, it means we cannot connect to the database. And if you have this error message, it means the connection is timed out. Else, we just want to return, with this error message and the status 500. Finally, we want to disconnect the serverless environment. So if process.env.vessel, right, this is an optional field. We just want to disconnect the serverless environment. So we can save this and we move back to the dashboard. Over here, we are going to have data variable to store the response and set the report to the data we are getting back from the API. We have this error message here if in case there is an error, and finally object to set is loading to false, right? So what we are going to do with this is to call this fetch report anytime this component gets reload, right? So anytime this component is mounted, we want to call the fetch report. Beautiful. And next, we are going to create a function to update the status, right? A function to update the status. So what this function is doing is to accept the report ID and the new status. So we go back to our old endpoint that we have here, report, and then we have the report ID. Remember, inside this, we have a patch request, right? We have a patch request. So what this is going to do is to help update the status of the report. I explained this earlier on when we were creating this endpoint. So back to the dashboard, we send a patch request to this endpoint and we provide the new status as the body to the endpoint. And if the response is okay, we fetch the report again because we want to present the user with the newly updated information. So we call the fetch report to do the fetching all over again. And we catch any error that we may get. So let's have the code to do the filtering, right? The filtering of the report. So we create, so the report state here is being updated over here. So report data, we filter through them, right? Where we have a match of whatever filter type the admin may want to perform, right? So we have that code over here. And we are going to have the get status color, basically same as what we have at the track report, right? Remember the track report, we had this, submit report instead. The track report, inside the report tracker, we had this function here, forget status color. So basically we are going to have a very similar function inside this dashboard component. I'll just copy that, paste it over here. So based on the status, we want to display different colors. And we are going to have this check-ins to check whether we are loading a report from the database. We show this spinner, else we return the component, the dashboard, to display all the display every single report that we have on the system. So we are going to have this div over here, this div over here as the parent div for the whole for the whole component, and we are going to have a navbar inside this dashboard. So what this navbar is going to do is to just have the admin dashboard as a title, and we have the username. Also, we have the sign out button. Basically, that is what this navbar is doing. So you can pause the code or check the final code in my GitHub repo and copy this as well. And from the navbar, we have a main element, right? So the main element is where we are displaying every single thing that we have inside the dashboard, right? So the main element is going to have these. We're going to have a div with the following class properties. Inside this div, we are going to have the filter options. So the options to filter the report, right? So we have those divs pasted over here. So the first division is a select element with options of the status types, right? So we want to be able to filter the report based on the status type. So we have the value filter on change, update the filter value, and we have the options, and we have an additional select element with the type, being it a theft, a fire outbreak, and what have you. So we have all these, we have all these. Lastly, we are going to have this div, which is going to display all the elements that we want the admin to see, right? Every single element that we want the admin to see. So I'll just go ahead and paste those over here. And we have filtered reports.map, which is looping through all the filtered reports, right? So by default, we want everything to be a match. And when the user tries to update any of the status type or the type match, we retrigger this whole function to update all the reports that we are getting from the database over here. So we loop through the filtered reports, and because by default, the filtered report is going to have all the reports that we have on the platform, unless we modify or alter it. And we have the divs and the elements, we have the divs and the elements to actually display the report title, report status, and description, right? Locations, image, and everything that is important to be displayed in the dashboard over here. Right? So we have everything over here. So we have the report status to be modified over here. And if the filtered report.length equals 0, meaning we don't have any match, we want to display this div, no report found matching the selected filters. So I think basically we are done creating the dashboard page. Yeah, we are done creating the dashboard page. So we can have a look at the complete code and move back to this video, go through section by section and try to understand whatever is going on over here. As I have explained the main important concept of the dashboard page, you can follow along and understand the bigger picture of what is going on over here. So I think we can test everything out. So back to localhost. We are having this error here that says use section must be wrapped in section provider. So back to our layout. So over here, we have to wrap the provider around the children element inside the code. So we're going to have providers, being wrapped around all these children, right? So we have to import providers, import providers, from providers. We are going to create this file very soon. So let's create a new file inside the app directory named providers. Inside here, this is going to be a very basic code, right? So we just call use client and import session provider from NextAuth /React, and we have export function providers. Children as a prop, we extend children React node, and we return section provider with the children. Give this a save, move back here, providers. We should be ready to go. So back to the dashboard, refresh the page. So we are getting this error that says report filter is not a function. But before we even try to debug this, I think there are a couple more things that we have to add to our code before we will be able to test the application out, especially inside the .env file. Inside here, we have to provide a NextAuth secret and a NextAuth URL, right? A NextAuth URL. Let's close the entire application, run npm run dev, run it again, move back to dashboard. Let's try and sign in again. Auth sign in. John Doe, and we have password. Let's try and sign in again. And we have the dashboard rendered. So we have to add, a NextAuth secret and a NextAuth URL for the Nextjs authentication to work very fine. So we have everything here. So we have all the reports being displayed over here, right? And the username has been displayed over here, the sign out button over here. We can filter through the status, right? Maybe in progress or resolved, back to pending. We have the two here. Emergency, we can toggle between non-emergency and emergency. So we have non-emergency. There is no report found matching the selected filter. And we have emergency over here. We can update the status. So an admin can update the status. So we can change this to in progress. And the status is going to change. It's going to change, right? So you can see we have in progress, one in progress, which happens to be the house fire. And when we move back to all status, we can see the in progress here and the pending here. So the update is also working fine. This has been the SafeReport application. It's a solid foundation for a great app. You can build upon it, add more features, and take it to the next level. Feel free to share your progress by creating a post on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Discord, and don't forget to tag me. Thank you for sticking around till the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I will see you in the next one.